Hey guys, James here today, and welcome to another Sims 4 tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at roofing. We're going to go through how I roof, or how I would sort of approach roofing something like this and sort of work through it together. Also going through a few tips and tricks along the way, and just seeing how it all sort of works. I did a tutorial on roofing a long while ago. It's a little outdated now. There's a lot more features with these guys, so we're going to have a look at those. So I guess to start off with, what I would typically do if I've got a weird house shaped like this, I would look for the largest rectangle that we can fit within it. So whether it be this one here coming down like that, or, you know, maybe over here, rectangle or square, obviously, because all roofs come in rectangles. So the bigger one we can get in is the house or the base we're going to want to work off. And I think it's pretty clear that we can see that there is one large section here in the middle where if we drag this across, we can get this giant section of roof all uninterrupted. It sort of joins together all of these, and then it basically lets all these other little sections stick out of it so then we can work on those. Now, before we go any further, I want to go into depth about what each of these little like arrows and little balls do and how they sort of affect the roof itself. So starting off with the really obvious ones, the ones I've already used, the ones at each edge of the roof, obviously just control the size. That's literally all they do, so you can sort of drag them out and control the size in any which way you want. So if we put that back to where it was, that's simple. That's pretty self-explanatory. Likewise, so is the one on the top. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It just adjusts the pitch of the roof from really shallow angle to really steep. And you can sort of play around with that however you want. Now, something that you may or may not know about this guy here is if you hold down the Alt key on your keyboard, you can actually fine-tune the slope of the roof so it's much smoother. You can basically get it to any position you want between the minimum and the maximum. So rather than it snapping to each of these points, you can put it anywhere. So that might be really useful if you just want to get it just right. If you think that angle's wrong, maybe you want it a little bit lower. And it can sometimes be useful when you're trying to align roofs together as well. So that is super useful. Now, another thing you might have noticed when we were sort of bringing the roof up a little bit steeper than you might normally have it, is that these guys, the roof actually extends down through the walls, which sometimes is desirable. Sometimes you want that. Sometimes you don't. And what these guys are called, the bits that stick over the edge of the walls, they're called the eaves of the roof. So if you want to change the size of them, you can by clicking on this little arrow here. And you can see that will bring the front and the back up. So now it sits on top of the wall. Or if you want to bring it way further down, you can bring it all the way down to the ground and it now basically covers everything. And obviously they have a minimum and maximum. So you can't go any further than that. You can't go any less than that. So that's really, really handy. But there's another really helpful little tip, and this comes in handy sometimes it may not. But so if you hold down the Shift key, you'll actually only bring out one side of the roof. So the other side will stay where it was. So you can now get different sized eaves on either side of the house. Depending on, you know, where the roof is sitting. Obviously, in this case, we'd probably want them to be the same and maybe even have no eave there and just go with that. Now, likewise, the same thing happens on the edge of the roof here. So you can see it sticks out this way lengthways. You can also grab and drag these things out further and it will adjust both sides of it. And exactly the same as the other ones. If you hold down Shift, we'll only adjust one side of it. It'll leave the other one where it was. And again, this can come in handy in certain situations. Obviously, in this particular case, having them in the same position is probably fine. It doesn't need to do anything special. So those are some helpful little tips there. Now, these little grabby orbs here in the middle obviously adjust the arch of the roof. You've probably played around with this before. There's no magic there. But something you may not have known is if we put this back to normal, if you actually press Shift-C on your keyboard, more of these little orbs appear. Look at them. Isn't that amazing? And actually, if you have an eave on the roof, which we don't currently have now, there'll actually be a third one down there. So if you don't have the eave, you won't see that. That's why we've only got two. But if you've also got an eave, there's another one there. So these give you even more control over the curve of the roof or the arch of the roof. So this one at the top is obviously controlling the top of it. One in the middle, you can actually adjust the middle separately, so you can bring that down. And then on the eaves, you can then again adjust the flaps. I call them flaps because if you play around with it, you can really just have a bit of fun with it. It's a bit ridiculous. But it gives you way more advanced control over the roof. And again, you can combine this with the single-sided eave adjustment, so you can bring that one in, bring this one out, give it a weird shake about, bring this out. You know, like there's a lot more you can do with it by enabling the more advanced curvature. If you want to go back to the simple way, just press Shift-C again. It'll remove those points and it'll actually remove where you've placed them. And you'll basically lose that sort of curvature that you've built in But if you just undo, obviously you'll get back to it. So Shift C unlocks more advanced roof controls. But let's go back to trying to roof this monstrosity. So we've got all these weird rooms, especially this one at the back, that make it a little bit more difficult to roof. Now, the one at the front, very easy because this sticks out. This is probably, you're probably no stranger to this. You could easily get this roof here and just drag it in, something like that. That's pretty easy. Or another way to do this that can sometimes look good is if you just get this guy here, the half gabled, and drag it along. And then instead of having it at the same angle as the other roof, if you bring this down lower like this, you can create almost a porch kind of a roof. And if you bring it along like this, you can also extend the porch. And then you can have this whole area undercover, get some columns in here, and then just sort of play around with it. And you get sort of a more traditional, almost more traditional looking, kind of farmhouse. Now, this is where you sort of run into the eaves and the control of the eaves being useful. So we can bring this one in if we hold down Shift, and it will then sort of join the roof in a more desirable manner. You can see they still don't quite join in a great position. So if you grab the angle of this one and bring it up, and it's all about, this is sort of how adjusting roofs comes into play. Like if you hold down Alt, you can really sort of get it exactly where you want and go from there. Now, if you don't really like how you can see this roof coming through this one here, there's not a lot you can do about it unless you were to extend this roof section up above it and have this one go in one less. So you can see that it doesn't look as strange now, or you can just leave it how it was and it's fine. It doesn't really matter. You can reduce the eave a bit, but it's obviously not going to go further back than there. So there'll always be that bit there unless you build something in front of it. So that's just a heads up. But anyway, so you can do like a porch roof there. And then for this bit here, we got this weird cutout corner. So what I would probably do is grab one of these gabled roofs, drag it in, bring it across like this. And then you can see the porch roof now doesn't join it. So we probably just want to drag it across one. So then it sort of joins in. We have all this nice sort of flowing angles that join together. This one's actually a little taller than the other roof, so we'll bring it down so it meets a little bit neater, just so it doesn't have a weird lip there. So then that sort of all joins together nice and smoothly. But of course, we have this weird little section here. Typically, this would be pretty annoying to roof, and you can probably see why. You can just get this guy here, is it what, just a hipped roof, drag it in, fill up the size, and just make sure that you don't really have, you want to avoid basically roofs sloping into each other like this. That's typically avoided in roofing of actual houses because the way the water will flow or snow would build up would not be great. So you try to avoid that. I mean, not every builder's like that, but you typically try to avoid it. So in that case, we have the roof sort of coming in like that. It might look a bit strange because it doesn't have an eave on it. So you can actually just add one in. Only downside with that is you might be able to see it right now. It will actually pop out through this entire roof over there. So sometimes it's better just to leave that off. Or in the case that you want the eave there because then it matches up with the rest of the build. A way you can avoid it looking strange on the end of a house like this. So this one's eave is obviously dragged in because we brought it in because of the other side, which is fine. But if we were to bring it out and meet it down there, then obviously on this side it would come down as well. So you can have it like this. I would probably suggest just bringing the roof all the way along. Like that. The angles are not quite working for us. So you'd either want to adjust the angle so it all sort of blends in. So it's the same angle like this. Or if we just bring this down and meet it. And then this one would have to come down too, because now you can see we've got a little gap there. Like I think you can see sort of how the roofs are really, it's kind of how you want it to look. Like we can do it like this, or there's like a million other ways you could do it. For example, another thing I would probably prefer to do rather than having this roof come across like this, not that that's wrong or doesn't look good. I think I just prefer the look of having the larger roof stick out beyond that one. So just extending the room by one just makes that section look a little bit nicer, I think, rather than having that roof intersect with it. Also means we can sort of reduce the size of that. It doesn't need to be that big anymore. So it'll just go there instead. So that will sort of just be a bit neater. Now, if we put that all back, we don't even have to use this roof here. We could use something else. We could even use the same roof again. Sometimes this can look good. So if we use the same roof by duplicating it and sort of just scaling it up, you can see that still looks pretty nice as well, having that second half gabled roof there. Again, we have the same issue of the roof coming through here, but it's a little bit harder. If you wanted to bring this along like this, you can see it will stick out the other end of the house, which can sometimes work if the other side of the house lines up with it. But in this case, it doesn't. So what you can do, if you still want it to come through like this, I would typically bring this sort of roof back halfway through, then just get one of these guys, the hipped roofs instead, and fill out that space, give it an eave, make sure it's the same angle as those roofs, and then it will sort of just continue the pattern along. It's a little bit, pattern's a little bit off there, but It should be okay. You probably won't notice that, especially if we change the pattern. Okay, I can't grab that. Especially if we change the pattern sometimes or just adjust it a little bit. But anyway, so you can sort of extend it that way. Even if we bring it all the way along, that should make it a little bit nicer. So yeah, you can sort of blend it in that way. Or if we did want this roof to just come all the way through, which we can do, we can then come around the back and work on the back section. So if we duplicate this roof again using the same one, we could even put it here if we wanted. So if we bring it like that, we don't want it to go all the way through. We want it to blend into the main roof like that. But like I said, we kind of want to avoid sections like this. So that's not ideal. What you could do here, get another roof. That's the thing. Roofs are just keep going until you get it right. If we get another one of these in there, drag it across. Sort of fill up that space instead. Bring it down. Bring it down to about there. And then we're going to probably... We could either keep this roof all the way through, or we can sort of just bring it back like that because this one covers it up. So you could do something like that, so then it sort of all blends together. Obviously, the one on the top here is not going to reach. Now, like in terms of not going to reach, like blend into that one, what we can do is just bring it down until it does. And if we bring in the eave, you can see it's sticking out. It almost fits, but if we bring it back, it will be like too far past it. But if we bring in the eave by holding down shift, it'll then meet it perfectly there. Obviously, it's a little bit of a different angle, so we can match up our other roofs. This one is obviously now off as well a little bit. It's a whole thing of just adjusting the roofs until they sort of work. Like in this case, we're probably going to have to adjust a lot of them because now we've adjusted that angle. We've got to bring down those. But then it all sort of works well. We've got that sort of porch roof at the front. We've got these two roofs there. These two at the back if we wanted it like that. We didn't have to do it like that. Of course, we could do it completely differently. Anyway, the point is you can do that, and you can see how the adjustment of the eaves sort of played into this section and that section over there. And then over here, this is a little bit different. This is going to be a little bit odd. There's no easy way to roof this. Like if we wanted to do something like this, let's just bring this roof through, bring out the eaves. Then really all you can do here is put another roof here, and it's just not going to look good. It's simply put, the shape of the room and the way it's attached to the house is just not great. There's like really nothing you can do to roof this easily, this section here, because it sticks out in two different angles. Basically, because it's sticking out this way and sticking out that way, there's no easy way to roof it in with the rest of the building. So what we can do here is actually do a wraparound porch roof instead. So we're going to grab the half-hipped roof. This will allow us to do sort of a corner around this section. And we're just going to stretch it out all the way along to the end and sort of bring it in until it matches up to where we want it to be. To about there. And then we're going to have to try and match the angle. Now, because we did do a fine tuning on the angle, if we hold down Alt, we're going to have to try and get as close as we can, which you can typically get it pretty close. If you look at sort of, you can see where the highlight sort of changes the intersection of it. So we can sort of get it pretty close. You can see that, I mean, that's pretty much like spot on at that point. If we bring this along a little bit more, we might even want to bring in the eaves at this point because it looks a bit strange where it sort of intersects the roof. Same on this one, you can see it's coming through. So if we bring in the eave by holding down shift again, then it will give us a better sort of lineup. Then let's duplicate this roof, bring it around like this. So we have the same roof, we don't have to worry about it. Bring it in this way. And again, we're gonna have to adjust this eave so it joins the corner properly. So if we hold down shift on this little arrow there, bring it in. We can probably bring this one out if we want. By holding down shift, just bring out that one. And now we have this sort of wraparound porch roof, which is going to make this weird sticking out corner, which maybe I like, maybe that I really, really want that corner. It makes that weird corner look a lot better. And actually, we can probably put this eave back. We didn't need to get rid of that. I'm going to go ahead and say that right now. Put that back. I think we put it back on the other side too. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. That sort of works out there. Now, you might be noticing we got this weird section here, but you can probably see what I'm going to do here. It's very easy to duplicate this roof. Just rotate it around and actually just have it sort of come into the roof. And then it looks perfectly fine because now, even though it sort of goes beyond the main body of the house and the roof, because we've got the porch roof there, it actually doesn't look too strange. Like it will fit in quite well. But one thing you might notice looking at this, and at least this is a matter of opinion. You might not think so, but I typically think if you have a roof sort of facing towards us like this and the different angles, like these two are obviously different angles to that. I don't think that looks particularly neat in my opinion. So I would probably want these the same angle as this or vice versa. But in that case, why don't we go ahead and change it so we have a sloped roof into the main body of the house rather than using these sort of hipped roofs or half gabled roofs. So I might even take the main roof here, well, not the main one, but this larger section here, and actually sort of match the angle. It's probably not exactly right because we fine-tuned this one, but it's like close enough. You can't really tell the difference. And then this little section here, why don't we go ahead and just do this sort of hipped roof and just blend this in with the rest of the body of the house here. So bring this along. We want it to match the top of the house. Probably, actually, we can probably just bring this all the way down, to be perfectly honest. Just match that angle of this roof here, which would be around about there. Is that lower, actually? That might be a little lower. So about that angle there, it'll probably be fine. Bring out the eave on it as well. Now, we've got a weird thing going on here because this angle is lower than the other one. Actually, we can probably bring this way along. It doesn't need to be that far in. Just far enough that the top of it sort of comes over. Now, over here, we've got a weird thing going on because we've got a different eave, different angles and all that. Because this roof is a steeper angle than this one, the eave goes further down. We can resolve that by overlapping another roof, or like I did earlier, I'd probably just go ahead and do this, extend the body of the house by 1, because then you just cover it up and it just basically instantly solves it. And then you have that sort of back section of the roof that looks a little bit neater than it did otherwise. So you can sort of go for that. Or if we don't want to do that, you might even just do another porch roof around the back. Because we've got so many porch roofs going on in this place, it's probably a good idea to just almost continue that sort of theme. And then it sort of all blends together. Now, of course, doing your roof really heavily depends on what style of house you're going for. Because this house, there's no way, like this is not a modern house. This is not a modern house. We've not roofed it in that way. But you can completely change the look of a house if you do that. So this is obviously just using a few tips. That needs to come in further. Sorry, I've broken my own rules. Because we got that dip in the middle. There we go. Because we have... Look at this. That's no good. Okay, that's better. So, yeah. So we've done the roof like this. This is obviously just one way to do it. And this is kind of just using roofs in the traditional manner. And obviously I've covered up a lot of the odd shape of the building by doing like porches and balconies and all that kind of stuff. And that's usually a good way to go about it. If you can't roof the house without doing a porch roof, then just add one in because it will make it a lot easier. Now, if you want to do something a bit more modern, and a lot of the time this can make it a lot easier, just grab out, go into like the flooring, grab out one of these floor like flat squares, just place it up above, because basically modern, typically I would probably do like a flat roof kind of thing. And we're going to try and cover most of this section almost in a similar sort of way, just covering up a lot of it. So just going to be placing a bunch of these flat squares, basically just intersect them with the main one, and you can sort of drag them out like this, bring them over. So if we were to even just do something like this, it's basically just a giant rectangle now, and then get this section out the back, just fill in this bit here too, like that. So we've sort of got most of the body of the house filled in, and it doesn't look that great. Gonna be honest, does not look that great, but a lot of the time if you add on like half walls, if you select on the replace the half walls one here, you can actually just click in where you want them to go, depending on sort of what size you want them. For this house, probably would go this sort of size here and just fill in all these sections with the half wall. Now, obviously, this is not like the complete thing, but doing this helps out a lot. A lot of the time as well, what I might do is even cut off sections with the half wall. So if we grab the regular placement mode, do something like this, and then remove the half wall here by just clicking on these sections. Then having like a flat roof section, even extend out a little bit. That's not the right sized half wall, I can tell you that much. So just replace that with the better sized one. And then having like a little flat section of roof come out can be kind of nice as well. Give it a sort of a more modern vibe. And basically just playing around with a flat roof. Obviously this house is a little big for this flat roof, but I guess in that case, what I might do is even just add a second floor, something like that. And then maybe just get another flat roof on top of this. And that one probably doesn't even need a half wall on it. Although if you're going to do it, you could even use the really small half wall, can actually look really good in modern roofing. Also, a lot of the time, if you've got sort of overhanging parts like this section here, I like to put in sometimes just a wall, like just like that. So it sort of just covers it up, but it's still outside, and then putting like windows in it or something like that. Now, obviously this isn't directly roofing, but it's sort of what I'll go around and sort of what I'll do to make it look a bit more like uniform, because especially if you're going for this style, like of course you could be doing something completely different. You might be doing a different kind of modern or like contemporary or something like that. Like over here would probably benefit from a wall, maybe not the whole way along, maybe even just to like there, because it also just gives it a more sort of structural integrity to it, because it's this huge overhanging part. So what you can do is do that. Then even get like the windows in it if you wanted, or just leave it as a wall. Get some windows up here. And you can see like how this house completely changed appearance in like 2 seconds by doing this sort of modern roof, which is just flat. Like it's really not that special in terms of the roof. Like it's just basically half walls. But I think it can look really, really good. And especially if you start adding more and more elements to it, like maybe some more like walls here and there, maybe even here, if you did like a wall on the side, like that, maybe even bring it out here a little bit more so it lines up. Bring this across so it sits on top of that. You can have that sort of wall continuing all the way up on the side, which I think looks pretty cool. And you can sort of build it up like that. So if you want to avoid doing a more traditional roof, go for something a little bit more modern. That's pretty much how you do that. But I think the main takeaway I wanted to sort of give you with roofs was there's basically a bunch of different ways you can do it. There's also obviously all these little controls that have hidden features. By holding down shift, you can do one side of them. By holding down alt, you can get a really smooth like sort of elevation of the roof. If it would work right now, it's not. Sometimes holding down alt will break and it won't work. Like now, holding it down, it ain't working. I'm not sure what's going on there. Oh, there we go. I just left the roof tool and now it works. Okay, right. Holding down alt will get you the smooth sort of elevation or the sort of angle of the roof. Pressing shift and C will open up the additional additional curvature controls so you can play around with. So that's pretty much what you got to know about roofs is like you can do a lot with them by adjusting the eaves and the curvature, and you can do some weird funky things. Like even that could be a cool modern roof. I don't know. But there you go. Hopefully this helped you. If you're looking for a more general building tutorial as well, I've got one on my channel that will sort of teach you how to build from scratch and sort of even just get started. Like even just doing something like this, while it is just completely random shapes, I do a tutorial that sort of covers more of how to make a build look a little bit more interesting, or even just how to basically get started. If you want more sort of close looks at certain features, do let me know in the comments down below. But until next time, guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope this helped you. If you have any questions or any other tips and tricks, feel free to share them in the comments. But I'll see you next time, and have an awesome day.